Hi everyone in the world of cloud computing, and welcome to episode 11 of the Cloud Computing Australia show with Brad Nelson and world's #1 cloud industry expert and thought leader, David Linthicum. This show is sponsored by Nelson Hilliard, cloud computing recruitment specialist placing great people in cloud, IoT, fintech and AI. In this week's show, David and I will be talking about the Australia cloud adoption and the buyer attitudes. Hi Dave, great to see you. How's it going in sunny Texas this week?
Oh, I love Texas, especially in the winter. It kind of gives you a break. I mean, it's not tropical climate, but it's 50 degrees, and it doesn't get unbearable at night, so you can sit around the fire. And I'm at a ranch here, and everybody's just happy and nice, and kind of feels good to get away from the East Coast for a while. So I'm loving it here.
Fantastic. It sounds like you're having great fun. So it's an interesting question this week, an interesting topic as well, really. The use of cloud computing in Australia seems to continue inflecting. Do you think that Australian companies will hit the wall maybe in the next few years or so?
I think that, and we discussed this before. I think that according to the survey that we cited on this IDC thing, that they had 260 respondents across Australia. The focus on cloud adoption. And one of the things that kind of struck me is, number one, they seem to be all in via cloud, and that's been the market for a long time, where that's not the same as the States. Of course, it's a smaller market, but it seems to be more innovative and progressive than other parts of the world, including Europe, Asia Pac, and the U.S., of course. And going forward, they seem not to have a bias in public or private cloud. They seem to be very open to anything that works. And I think that's kind of a attitude that the rest of the world should adopt. So moving forward, not only is the cloud inflecting in Australia, but there doesn't seem to be barriers to attitudes that are going on where I have to do this all the time. People are afraid of the public cloud. They're think the private cloud's too expensive, and we have to kind of go through what it costs and the real value of this stuff. Where it's Australia seems to be jumping in feet first, and that's in every survey I think we talk about on the show that seems to be the case. I mean, nothing said Australia was moving away from cloud and hates cloud and is non-innovative, and it just seems to be a big party going on down there, and and cloud computing seems to be leading the parade. So you live down there, so what do you think?
100%, 100% on that one, David. I think that Australia, as we've always mentioned when it comes to Australia, we always seem to be quite chipper about what's going on down under, as it were, with the embracing of technology, especially understanding the deliverables of hybrid public and the private clouds. And I think that's because Australia does get out there and knows it has to get out there to the rest of the world to see what's going on, and to not only just watch what the rest of the world is doing, but embrace it as quickly as possible. In fact, Macquarie Telecom, put an interesting tweet out there only yesterday, which I jumped off the back of because it was a topic that you and I had spoken about, which was regards to getting to the cloud sooner rather than later, because you can afford to fail in the cloud because you can pick yourself up a lot quicker, and it's more of an effortless process in order to move on, failing in the cloud, as it were. So I thought that was very interesting that Macquarie Telecom did that, and they retweeted it and liked it as well. So yes, we were doing some good there. So it really does. Macquarie Telecom, particularly, are out there. We spoke about Macquarie, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, about the how they've launched all those, put hundreds of apps into the cloud as well. So I think Australia does embrace it. It understands it because it has to, and because the way it's positioned, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I like to hear that as well. I had a slide in one of my keynote presentations I did last year that's, talked about how the cloud allows people to fail fast and fail successfully. And the reality is that the companies out there, that are really changing the space. And of course, we always talk about Uber and Netflix and, all the usual suspects, Airbnb. And there's thousands of them out there that are kind of on the same innovative edge. They're not afraid to try things to the point where it just fails. But of course, if you're spending $10 million in your own money on infrastructure and buying computers and screwing them in and have to maintain them and hiring people to maintain them, and you do something that's not going to be something that the market likes, and you have to basically reboot or pivot and do it again, that's going to be a huge cost. And then your investors are going to get upset with you. They're going to withdraw funding, things like that. Now it's like, well, let's just go ahead and give it a shot, because, worse is we're out, a couple $1,000s in AWS cycles, and the billing continues to be, something that's really not much of an issue. And by the way, we can add and delete instances and add technology, IoT, and machine learning and things like that, and just really have a great old time and fail fast, but also succeed fast. And so as we fail, that means something doesn't work, and we succeed, something does work. That ends up being the billion-dollar idea that kind of changes and disrupts the industry. So moving forward, I think that cloud computing really is something that people should look as an enabling technology. Excuse me, it allows you to punch above your weight. If you think about most companies in Australia are looking to punch above their weight. They're trying to get out of their markets. In other words, Australia is kind of a small market relative to the rest of the world. Yet I think the Australian companies coming forward that I see now are going to be international companies. They're going to have huge impact all over the world. And there's some companies that do that now, but I think it's going to be the way going forward, much like Silicon Valley has, global impact based on the products and services they do. So as the investment starts pouring into Australia, they already trust the cloud. They're already really looking to be innovative and kind of make the changes that they're going to be on the cusp of making this stuff work. And I mean, I'm a scientist, so I consider data, not necessarily trends, but if you look at the data that's coming out of Australia, and I've been looking at that very closely for the last 3 years, this is more than a trend. This seems to be an explosion in that microeconomy, which is going to affect the rest of the world. So, are you guys excited and ready for Australia to disrupt the planet, or is that not talked about down there?
I know we're all extremely excited. We love disruptive technologies, that's for sure. I think when you can rock the boat and make a difference in the world, cut costs and make things better or improve, or be innovative to reinvent something completely, then I think that's all what Australia stands for. And it makes a big difference. And certainly, like you said, there's certain companies which have made a huge difference to economies across the world, not just the Australian economy. So you're absolutely right on that. They really do. They really do punch above their weight, to coin the phrase you've just used. I was going to say something as well about the C-suite show we did last week, I think it was, where we were discussing the sitting on the fence, and C-suites not making a decision about, jumping onto whichever cloud platform they want to for whatever reason, but sitting on the fence, there really is no need to do that. I just wanted to reinforce our last show about the C-suites and the fact that fail fast and move on more effectively and more quickly is sort of the mantra, isn't it really? Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree, and I think that we're getting out of the mentality of getting fired for taking risks. So when I worked with the Global 2000 companies maybe 20 years ago, even though they did do some chasing of the shiny stuff, the newer technology, managing by magazine, things like that. The reality is that they're very risk adverse because of they're trying to manage their careers effectively. And if they're going to bring in technology that doesn't work, then that's going to be pinned on them, and they're likely going to be pushed out of the organization. I've seen CIOs do that over and over again. Now within the boardrooms, they're really incentivizing the CIOs and the CTOs and the technology leadership within the Global 2000 to be as innovative and disrupting as they can, and to the point of the fact that we're not going to put failures against you. In fact, we're going to put failures for you. That doesn't mean we want you to fail each and every time, but that means that you can go out there and try risky things. Some of them are going to result in failure, and that's going to basically go to ultimately we're going to get to some inventions that are going to reinvent the company. So that's different thinking, than we had 10, 15 years ago. And I it's one of the reasons I didn't want to work within the Global 2000 companies. I worked in a few, is that they just had this mentality that was, sit on the fence, not do anything, sloth, moving like molasses in terms of technology changes and not trying anything new. And so the cloud's kind of pushed people to that. So in other words, you got to basically reinvent yourself around this new technology because it's efficient, and your competition down the street is doing the same thing. So either you reinvent yourself or they're going to reinvent yourself and they're going to eat your lunch. And we're going to see a huge disruption, automobile industry in the next 10 years, the retail industry in the next 10 years, more so than it has been so far, manufacturing industry in the next 10 years. And the fact that these small upstart companies are going to end up eating everybody's lunch in the marketplace, and there will be some Global 2000 companies that not only maintain the position but actually excel, banking, things like that. So strap in. It's going to be a wild ride over the next 10 years, kind of based on technology, and we're kind of upside down in our thinking. in terms of being conservative versus risky. We're basically being risky to be profitable, to add value to the business.
Yes, absolutely right. On all accounts, I think with what you've just said, and you said it's about upside down thinking. Well, we're positioned really well for that because we're obviously on the other side of the world.
I stepped into that, didn't I?
Yeah, very nicely. What a lovely close. Thank you, David. Really appreciate your time this week on the Australia show. As always, it's always a pleasure. And thanks for jumping in on this Skype call all the way from sunny Texas.
Hey, that's what Skype's for, man. See you soon.
See you soon. Well, thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed this week's show. And please connect with David on Twitter, obviously LinkedIn as well. You can get David on Twitter, which is at David Linthicum, and I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn, which is at Nelson_Hilliard for Twitter and Brad Nelson on LinkedIn. So thanks for watching, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on all our future videos.